transpire. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Rightio. We'll get into it. What years did you attend Buninyong?
So I attended Buninyong from 2005 to 2011. So it was 7 years in total. So that's my whole primary time was here.
Yeah. I'll just go quick with the next one. How do you think your experiences at Buninyong have shaped your personal and professional journey?
It's a very good question. I mean, I've always believed that everything happens for a reason, even if it's something that doesn't make much sense to you at the time. Because don't forget, I mean, I was only I was only 12 and below. So things make sense to me out in a way that they didn't all those years ago. And there were obviously many things that I could have done differently in hindsight while I was here. We could spend the whole day talking about those kind of things like that. But I feel like it's kind of all the times where I've been gotten into trouble and there'd been issues that we had to deal with that I think it's kind of over time kind of helped to shape me to a learning experience, if you will, to kind of give a piece of the puzzle. And because you kind of learn from each experience that you do, even if you take a while to really understand what's expected of you. And I feel like kind of for over my time at Buninyong and of course going through secondary school as well, I've learnt a lot about myself and how I kind of think, because when you're young, these things aren't obviously exactly obvious to you, how you work on the inside. So I think kind of overall, I've kind of come out of it pretty well, I think. And I've heard from many people who I was involved with here at Buninyong that they're very happy to see me how I am as well. So it's just a small thing. So awesome.
Yeah, that's really good. So tell us about your teachers, and did you have a favourite?
There's a lot to say about that one. I mean, most of my teachers that I had here were actually, for the most part, really great. Like I got on with them. Well, I must twist my words there. Got on well with them for the most part. There were like maybe one or two teachers that I didn't exactly see eye to eye with. I won't say who they are, obviously, because I'm not one to throw people under the bus. But on the most part, I got on with them well, and I think they all tried in their own ways, in their own unique styles, to kind of get the best out of me, to work well with me, to kind of engage me in the classroom. In terms of favourite, fortunately, that's a very easy question for me to answer. Would have to be Mr. McGlynn. You both may remember him. He ended up being assistant principal here for a while, because I had him twice over my time here in grade 2 and in grade 6.
Yeah.
And what I found was, particularly in grade 2, when I was only 8 at the time, it kind of felt like that he really went out of his way and went above and beyond to kind of understand how I operated, kind of about like ASD, because I'm on the autism spectrum. Because back at that time, it was a very kind of growing field. Like no one really knew much about it. So he really went out of his way to do that stuff. And he also, it just felt like that we really kind of connected in a way that I hadn't really seen before. That's not to say that it was all sweetness and light. It wasn't. There were obviously many issues that we dealt with along the way, but I felt like I really got on well with him and worked well, cooperated him well. And I caught up with him a couple of months ago at the when we had the fete here, and he's again very happy to see how I've turned out. So he's definitely my favourite here. So.
Yeah.
I like Mr. McGlynn too.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. Do you remember what you did for like during lunch and recess breaks? And do you have like a favourite part of the day?
So it's a two parts to that question. So kind of in the early years that I was here, I often was out in the yard, like playing with my friends. We used to play Tiggy a lot. So you're it, and just run around the yard all of recess and lunch. We had lots of fun with that one. As towards the end of my time though, I kind of was spending more time in the first aid room, because my support aide, who I was with for most of my time, the entire time I was here, she was kind of operate the first aid room, and I would kind of just be in there, just on my netbook doing stuff. I don't know why. I just felt, in some ways, because I kind of felt more comfortable being inside, because like I wasn't really part of like the sporting kind of club, like the guys who play footy or soccer. That just really wasn't what I did. So I just kind of got used to being inside and just kind of in my own world as such. But of course, obviously, everyone has did their own different things. That wasn't to say I was inside all the time, but kind of over time, that's how it kind of transpired. In terms of a favourite place in the school, maybe not a favourite per se, but it's just one that kind of just sticks out in my mind. In probably the first, probably 2 years that I was here, up in the far corner of the school, so up towards the corner of Simpson and Corny Street, there was used to be this really big tree stump that was up there, and we always used to kind of like the hangout spot almost. We always used to go there. And one day I was sitting up there, sitting on the stump as we did, and another boy who was a year older than me, again, I won't say names, but he came up and he was like, "Oh, I was here first." And I said, "Well, you left," sort of thing like that. And then he pushed me off onto the grounds. So I had to go to the first aid room. And that was probably my first injury that I had over my time here. Um, Obviously, it wasn't a pleasant experience, but it's just something that I often remember. So, in some ways, it's kind of a memorable part of the yard. Don't try looking for it though, because it's long gone. So,
Isn't it funny how sometimes the small little memories that you've got, not from these massive big incidents, but they're stuck in your mind somewhere?
it's the small things that really obviously really matter. So,
Yeah, right.
Are there any particular school traditions or events that you remember participating in? How have they stuck with you?
there's a few actually that I remember very well. One was when we did assemblies on Friday mornings, we'd always do a sing along to the national anthem.
Yeah.
It's just something that we did week in, week out. So that kind of tradition kind of stuck over my time here. Or another thing I remember very well is the Ass Carnival, because particularly when I was like in Prep to 2, because that's when we did all the really cool events like the egg and spoon race, the sack race, so on and so forth. And it was just nice for me to get dressed in my house colour, which being Scott is yellow, and just to have fun and just to kind of get away from just the normal course classwork that we did. So it was just nice just to have a bit of fun with that. One thing that I do remember very well that's kind of very close to my heart almost is lunch orders, because we always it used to be the most exciting time on like a Friday when we'd have like one of my classmates would go and grab the tray from the canteen. I want to bring it up, like I just want to have my lunch, because what I did is I kind of perfected a bit of a recipe where I'd buy chicken nuggets and then a roll, and I'd put them in a roll and have it like that.
Great.
A lot of some people looked very funny at me for that, but I just kind of got used to having that. So that's kind of probably the meal I remember the most in the canteen. And just maybe two others as well. The wet day timetables, obviously when it was wet, because you don't want to get all muddy and outside. So we used to, because this is back in those days, in the early years I was here, because we didn't have our own tablets, netbooks, etc. We had like actual computers in the classroom, so we would be playing on those. When we had a smartboard, we'd be drawing and doing stuff on that while on a wet day timetable, and just like playing games and just being inside. So yeah, it was kind of nice every once in a while when it was wet just to be in the classroom, not having to go out and run about and do whatever else. And I don't know if you guys still do this, but like on a Friday afternoon, we'd always have, for the most part, we'd have like free time, because any teacher would know that Friday afternoon trying to get kids to be focused and get stuff done is quite onerous. So so we just obviously did our own things on Friday afternoons, which was quite fun. So
I know two of those things. I like the lunch orders. I love my lunch orders.
who doesn't?
Yeah, and the free time.
Yeah.
We do that sometimes. Yeah, it's pretty much a
We did it a lot back in the days. I don't think they do it much now, but it's just what we did. So
I got one question. Can you remember a memorable anecdote or story from your time at this school that still stands with you?
there's so many. I mean, when I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days, and one particular one that comes out at me was in 2008, so that's 15 years ago. I was in grade 3. I was in Mr. O's class. I think Mr. O still works here.
Yep.
Yeah. He was great as well. And that was the year, I don't know if you guys saw this, that we had to get our pen licenses, because up until then we'll be writing with pencil. And over the course of the year, particularly around the second half of the year, over time everyone would get their pen license. I think it was based on like how you wrote and how often you wrote, so on and so forth, things like that. And I remember just sitting there and just like getting really almost because everyone would get theirs before me. Like, so everyone was writing with pen and I was still here stuck with crappy old pencil. And I was probably one of the last, if not the last, in my class to get the license, that pen license. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. And I remember I was just so happy that I could finally join my classmates and write with pen because I'm not sure if he held out on giving it to me just to make me work harder for it, but it felt like I worked hard for it. So, and it's always a nice feeling that when you work hard to achieve something, it's a very good feeling. So that's probably the one of the many anecdotes that I have over here at Buninyong, and probably the one that sticks out the most, I think. So
I remember, I think I was also last to get my pen license.
it's always the good people that get it last.
If you have any piece of advice to current or future students at Buninyong, what would it be during from your own experiences?
I think there's a lot I could say about that. I think though the one thing that I would say to present students and those who may be starting here maybe next year is to kind of make the most of what is to offer here. So whether it be doing something like Lunchtime Live, if you've got, if you feel a bit talented in that sense, if you could sing or play an instrument, those sort of things. With the kind of the sporting stuff that we do where we go out, it's not part of P, but we might go and do like soccer or footy somewhere else. It's you might not necessarily be the best at it, but it's always good to try because I always say it's better to try than to not try at all. Um, One thing that I did I think it was in grade 5 was we had a chess club here so we'd be in the library just in here at lunchtimes just doing that, and we actually did a chess tournament at another school one time as well. In hindsight, I probably maybe didn't do as much with the make the most as maybe what I could have at certain times, but it's probably the most obvious thing that I can recommend to anyone here because it's not just a place where you come to learn and do stuff. It's also a place where you uh, have relationships with others. You kind of do things that kind of break up the day. So you might not just coursework, but also like fun stuff as well. Those sort of things.
Yeah.
So, because there's a lot on offer here. So that's what I can say.
Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah. As we celebrate this significant milestone, would you share your thoughts on the role that Buninyong Primary School has played in shaping the local community?
Well, I think because the school, because the school's obviously 150 years old, it's been here for so long, it's kind of almost like the town has kind of grown around the school. And like, I mean, I've lived in Buninyong for nearly 20 years, and even in that time, particularly with like the houses just down the road here, it's just kind of taken off. Like, the school's kind of almost like the centerpiece of the town in that sense. And I think because Buninyong is such a very close community, so we're a town, not just a suburb of Ballarat. It's kind of almost like everyone knows someone who either went to this school, or who knows someone else who did as well. It's very kind of very close in that sense. And also because I think we still are one of the largest schools in the district. We obviously take in like around like Lowell, Elaine, or Napoleon, so on and so forth. So it's a very big community that goes just beyond Buninyong as well. And also, I think because the school has changed a lot in the last 12 years since I left, and even during my time here, there was a lot that was going on. Like we were building new buildings, we were rolling out like smart boards and like laptops and things of that nature. So there's a lot that's changed in the last 20 years in that sense alone. So it's nice to kind of see how much the school has changed, but it's also at the same time, and especially with the celebrations that we've got in a couple of weeks, just to kind of see what people are sharing, like who went to the school in like decades past, because it's a common identity. Like you might not know someone very well, but you can kind of relate in the sense that you've been to this school, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
like I can talk to you about. We can obviously talk, obviously, as we're doing now. Like you can share your experiences, I'm sharing mine, that sort of things, and you can kind of say, "Oh yeah, I know that too," and kind of build on from that. So
Yeah.
it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah.
Lewis, are there, and I might jump in with a quick question, are there things that you remember as a student going here that you're taking into your profession now, studying, teaching, that you're thinking, right, now as a teacher, I remembered what it was like as a student, I'm going to try and be like this or like that, or...
Well, I think that one of the things I'm trying to do is to try and take the initiative to understand my students as best as I can.
Yep.
Because as I think I alluded to back in the mid 2000s when I started here, is that autism in a classroom setting was still a very nascent kind of category.
Yep.
And so what teachers now kind of benefit from all that knowledge. So I'm trying to kind of use that to use one example for my students going forward. Another thing also, I'm a very big believer in interactivity in the classroom because as I think I said just before, kind of in the mid 2000s, that was when we were introducing a lot of interactive stuff to helping out in the classroom, like smartboards, netbooks, tablets as well, because they were things that just didn't exist back in 2005 when I started. So that's another resource I want to tap into.
Great.
And I just think that knowing more about myself it's kind of helped me to be a kind of a more empathetic, caring human.
Yep.
And obviously as a teacher, that's who you want. If you're a student, particularly going into primary school, you want to have a teacher that cares about you and actually not doesn't pretend, that legitimately almost like they're one of your kids almost. And it's a very nice feeling, as I'm sure you two probably know as well. It's a very nice feeling when you have a teacher that is like that you can gel with.
Yeah.
Because when you don't, if you can't have a good relationship with a teacher, then it just falls apart. That's just, you don't want that. So
that's great, Lewis.
Well, thank you for your questions. Do you want to have a tour around school now? Show you some new places.
I wouldn't mind.
Be cool.
All right.
Yep, fantastic. No worries. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you so much.